protected speech.
It is protected speech. I feel that way too.
a solicitor's permit.
Nice. It's only been a few years.
Process. And you do like a little picture ID thing.
Actually, I think Woodland has some of that too. The problem is, there's a PG&E scam going on right now. People represent themselves as PG&E people.
Yeah, Valley Clean Energy, that's what I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
PG&E is its own scam, I thought.
1 more minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, you heard about that. People going, get crackle problems.
No, no, but it's.
Well, yeah, well, they're
PG&E
representing, they're almost
has,
representing
these
themselves
two
as
German
PG&E.
folks through,
That's
in
annoying.
collaboration with WDCWA, they're researchers. They're doing this
The
big
mighty band will always come
research
up with some
study
new
on
scam.
grackles, which is a bird that really
People
lives
are
in
motivated.
Canada, but they're migrating to the United States. And they have picked Woodland. They have a bunch in Santa Barbara. And now they're. There's a bunch of your researchers, and they're all excited. Hello, ma'am. 50 of them are in the ponds by our point.
Tom's trying to get your.
Oh,
We are going into closed session. Our mics are on. That,
Yeah,
is it
he
turned
knows.
off? It's turned off?
once we start the meeting and you say we're now going to start the closed session, he's going to
Have Tom and Rich from Woodland, and we have Camille representing UC Davis. So why don't we get going? So I'll accept a motion for approval of agenda.
Moved.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Public comment.
No members of the public.
Doesn't appear to be any public comment. So our first item on our agenda is closed session. So we will retire into closed session and then come back into open session as soon as that is complete.
You gotta get to the point where these meetings take 20 minutes.
Okay. So
Okay, welcome back. We are now in open session, and we will. We are on item 2, consent items. So, is there a motion to?
Excuse me, Brett, if we could just let the record reflect there's nothing to report from a closed
Oh,
session.
right. Yeah, nothing to report out from closed session.
I'll move consent.
So that includes the approval of the meeting minutes from our previous meeting, the treasurer's quarterly report, and our audited financial statements. Anyone want to second that? Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And just for the people watching at home, these are available on the agency's website, should they wish to see the detailed reports. Item 3, the general manager update and operations update.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Tim Bush, General Manager for the agency. A relatively brief report today. 4 quick topics, update on certain activities over at the joint intake, water purchase agreement that we're working on, the water supply risk and alternatives evaluation that was approved by the board at the last meeting, and then an operations update. Over on the joint intake, the completion project remains complete. There's a couple things that we've been working on. We had roughly 9 permits open for not only the completion project intake construction, but also the original joint intake construction. We were tasked with closing out all of the permits, then documenting that in a memo. We just received today at about 2:15 today, I got the last notification that the last permit was done and the memo has now been hopefully finally completed. The reason why that's a bit important for us is that the agency had lent RD 2035 some money several years ago. Basically, what's the word for it? Kind of pass through money that, it was money that we gave them, they would pay us when the grant money came back in. And there was a bit of retainage that had been held for the past couple of years pending completion of this last permit closeout and documentation of that. So we're now in the position to actually get that last little bit of money received. On the intake itself, there's a couple things that we've been working on. There's about 5 relatively minor erosion sites that we had repaired a few weeks ago. The contractor did the main work. Last year we had them come back and do some minor erosion repairs. That's the picture on the left. It's about 5 locations, 3 on the north, 2 on the south side of the intake. The picture on the right-hand side, however, is a little bit of a different story. This is on the south side of the joint intake. The concrete that you can see is the joint intake structure itself. There's about 2 feet or so erosion, vertically, 2 feet erosion, just above the current water line. This is an area that was underwater for a pretty extended period of time last year. It's from the original joint intake construction. Our completion project did not touch it. In looking at it with West Yost and also RD 1600, the consensus is that we need to do some rock slope protection on this. That simply repacking the dirt and trying to grow grass again is just going to wash away like it did the first time. So we're looking forward to putting that together as a capital project, bring that to the board preliminarily at the January meeting, and then including that in next year's budget for work about a year from now. Thing that makes it a little bit more complicated, the white pipe is an irrigation line. I'm not quite sure why that was built. That was from the original project, but also at the edge of the land where the land touches the water, you can kind of see a structure. And that is the fish refugia that was constructed as part of the project. The fish refugia, that's the safe space for the fish. Maybe it doesn't come up, maybe it doesn't show quite well in that picture, but the agency was tasked through, I think it was Fish and Wildlife or NIMS, to build essentially a fish safe space. It's a kind of a cage with rocks inside that the little fish can go hide when big fish are chasing them. So our rock slope protection has to be built to not damage that. So there's a little bit more complication. The other thing we're going to have to do is work with the state on whether or not this is a maintenance project or a construction project, and that gets into whether we need a permit for that work. So a couple of reasons why it's a next year project, not a this year project. That is a common facilities. Our expectation is that is a common facilities work, and the expectation is that would be cost shared 80% already 2035 and 20% agency. So that's one of the items for that. The other thing we've been working on is water purchase agreement. The plan is to do the same, pretty much the same agreement that we had last year. Our hope was that it could be a multi-year agreement. They are right now negotiating their water rights, and they had thought it would be done by now. It's not, and that's the reason for the delay for this agreement coming to us. We should have that in the next week or so, hopefully, but it'll be a one-year agreement structured the same as last year. Potential for a longer term after that, pending their conclusion of their water right negotiations. West Sacramento. So, yeah, exactly the same terms as last year. It does require a supplemental EIR again, just like, or EIR amendment, same as last year. The plan is we would try to schedule a special board meeting towards the end of October to approve that agreement or consider that agreement. Not yet, but all they really have to do is, the EIR is prepared. All they have to do is an amendment, but it's really the same amendment as last year with different year on it, because it's really the exact same plan as last year.
And to be precise, it's an addendum, which is a briefer CEQA document.
I do think the water purchase agreement is a good idea to do this year. It's definitely much less risk of Term 91 happening in fall than last year. But I think there's still some risk if it doesn't rain in November again like last year, that the board could reimpose Term 91 just like they did last year on November 15th. So I think the risk is lower, but I would not say it's zero. So that's one reason. The other reason is to document use of that water and kind of put our foot in the door that we are using their water. We are also starting work on the water supply risk and alternatives evaluation. We talked about this a bit at the past couple of board meetings. One of the major tasks is refining our demands. The city's demands are definitely lower than what was planned and projected back in 2009. It may not exactly be true for UC Davis, but it definitely is for the cities. But also on the supply side, our risks are different. That Term 91 risk is definitely different than it was 10 years ago. There's only going to be a very high-level discussion of the ongoing work on the Sacramento River. That's the unimpaired flows issue and the voluntary agreements. There's a pretty good momentum towards the voluntary agreements now. So at this time, we're not really including that in our scope of work. Mainly just a high-level mention that work is going on, and we're definitely aware in tracking that issue. We have already started some preliminary work on identifying alternative supply sources. I had a brief conversation with Camille a few months ago on that end. But there's a potential that we can maybe put something together. Hope to bring that back to the board in the next couple of board meetings. We're working on just like scheduling a kickoff meeting. Well, actually, that already is scheduled for October 11th. We'll be getting our team together on that, but we've already kind of started doing some preliminary work. With that, I will turn it over to Stan for the operations report.
Should look pretty familiar with just the dates changed. So running about 23 million gallons. You see 11, 10, 6, 1, 4, pretty typical numbers for this time of year. You see the UC Davis equals the 12. And then the plant's been running really well. Haven't had any issues from a regulatory or contractual terms. And then all of the quantities are as usual posted. Term 91 not in effect, as Tim mentioned, has not been in effect. In fact, both reservoirs are releasing additional supplies to provide for storage that they're required to meet by November 1, which is, we could talk about that a bit, but. So what board previously approved, rechroming of pump shafts at the intake and replacing those bearings that had worn and failed or had the potential to fail prematurely. Parts are on order. Work is scheduled for coming up to begin in October. We'd be doing one pump at a time and then cycle through those. Jacobs will do that. We did have another call about some noise going on with the screen cleaner at the intake. This is one of those items that's been lingering that Tim mentioned is a joint facility cost that we've kind of been working along with and waiting for this other concern to resolve itself. But there was some noise. Jacobs went out and looked at it. They did make some adjustments. There may be some further work that they need to accomplish to get that.
When we get a complaint about noise, is it that it's too loud and I don't like what it sounds like, or does it like when your engine makes a noise and you think I'm hearing a noise that I shouldn't be hearing?
No, it's more of a squealing noise, like a grinding on metal.
Okay.
Very loud, and it's typically the neighbors for the intake that are across the river. So at night, certainly if the screen cleaner is running at night, everything's kind of calm and it's very noticeable across the water.
But is the noise a normal noise it should be making, or is it?
No. Like last year, some of the bearings that weren't sealed had worn out and faster than were thought, so we would replace those. There's actually some additional bearings that are internal on the rail that were not replaced. There's also, depending on the water level, the screens, just part of the normal may rub and make some noise as they're going. Some of that's normal, but what the individual across the river typically calls about is abnormal. And then we will be doing some fish screen cleaning coming up here later this month. And then if you want to flip to the next slide. So this is from last year's cleaning. You can obviously see they collect a lot of material over the year. The picture on the right, most of that is clams actually inside there that have collected. And then the next slide is after cleaning, is what they should look like as you're going through, and they're nice and porous, and they allow water in but not the fish, so we're good. Okay. And I think that's so this has been on the list for quite a while. Obviously, transformer failure, everything's fine, it's operating fine. We're still waiting for the forensic analysis. We sent in some of the equipment to see if we could identify the cause of failure. We'll report on that when we get it. Annual maintenance is all complete. Jacobs did an internal to their business structure. They have what they call a BRAT review. They did do that, and based on our conversations with Brian, who's the manager from Jacobs that operates the facility, they did very well. They had a few minor comments that they've addressed, so they, by all appearances, internally with Jacobs, they're doing very well. And then we did some meter calibrations and some other maintenance there recently. So, okay. And with that, any questions?
One question.
So, seeing no questions, I guess we will move on to item 4. Considered election of board chair and vice chair for remainder of fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019. So the background to that is we were ready to have elections at the last meeting, but board member Stallard wasn't here, so we thought we should probably wait and,
You should have just gone ahead and done it, but you spared me having to go through what you just went through, so thank you.
so, just as background, typically the board chair rotates, alternates between the city of Davis. and
I'll
the city of
respectfully
Woodland,
nominate
so-
Will Arnold as vice chair.
I'll accept.
So, so we have a nomination for Tom as chair and Will as vice chair. Any discussion around that? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Twice in one meeting.
Yeah, I know.
It's all
We had a
good.
real-
So I won't scoot over because
Yeah.
we've got our little name tags here, but I'll hand the gavel over
Oh,
to
yeah.
Tom and he can take over
Cool.
for item 5.
I think we're essentially closing in on adjournment here, but the long-range board calendar, do you have anything pending for us?
I don't know that it was noted during the public session that we might have a special meeting.
Yeah, we're anticipating trying to schedule a special board meeting around the end of October to approve a potential water purchase agreement and some other items.
I think it'd be good to get something scheduled sooner than later because of calendars, okay? All right, thank you for that. Technical Advisory Committee comments. I'm not seeing any representatives of our Technical Advisory Committee. Stan, do we have any comments from the Technical Advisory Committee that you know of? Craig? I have nothing. Okay, all right.
Trying to come up with
Eh,
something.
no news is good news. Board member comments, we'll start on the end.
Do we want to check our calendars right now, just maybe zero in? Does October 24th look like a possible,
It's the same days of the week, I'm assuming.
yeah, Thursday, yeah,
Wednesday.
because our other alternative would be Halloween on the 31st. And,
Scary, isn't it?
in Davis, we have our little
Yeah.
trick-or-treat parade in downtown.
Have LAFCO, oh, that's
All right,
Thursday. Thursday.
So we're asked to consider the 24th for this meeting and 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
We could probably do 4 if it's going to be brief.
It doesn't matter to me.
They're the same.
4 o'clock?
Might
All
see
right.
my kids again.
I will be on vacation that week. I can send a colleague to cover the meeting, but I will not be available on the 24th. Sorry about that.
Well, do you trust your colleague?
Yes.
All right. All right.
Depends on which one.
If he brings in the deal, we might like him better, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, so,
I would say that we probably need Richard here because depending on how things progress over the next few weeks on one of the closed session items.
If it's straightforward, we won't need you, but if it's not.
How about November? It can't be November 7th. Sorry.
Why can't it be?
well, hold on here. Does it have to be on a Thursday?
Could it be the 23rd of October?
Well, what are your vacation dates? You're out the whole week? Okay. So,
So then the next week, it would be not Halloween if we didn't do it on we could do it on the Wednesday or the
how about Monday, the 28th at 3 o'clock, or 4 o'clock?
So I will be gone that week, that first part of the week, I have a conference.
Okay, that's all right. Then, are you out all week? 29th. Tuesday, the 29th, and you're gone still? When are you back? Yeah, that's the day of the SACOG Regional Futures Forum, and they're trying to get all the electeds in the region to come. So I would stay away from that date. It goes till 4 o'clock. Tuesday the 30th. Friday is November 1st.
Yeah, that's probably fine. If Term 91's not in effect right now, it's not likely they would do it right on the first. They'd probably wait and see what the forecast is. Like last year, they did it.
Okay. Is 4 o'clock still preferred on that Friday afternoon? Rudy?
Yeah,
On that,
I'm open pretty much that whole day.
oh, morning's fine for you on that? Sorry,
8:30
we have Calafco conference in
Oh.
Sacramento that day.
Oh, yeah.
It ends at noon. Why don't, I want to say 2 o'clock that afternoon? Friday, November 1st, 2 o'clock? Going once?
Yeah, I think we should have the meeting prior to November, just for the Term 91 issue.
Okay,
How about the 16th, Wednesday?
but is that too early? Because we're trying to get our other matters resolved too. I'm actually in St. Louis that day, so, and,
So actually, I have a question. So if
oh, no, no.
Camille is
16th
unable to
works.
attend, is she able to phone in?
Yes.
Yeah. It's the League of California Cities Annual Convention. All right. We've had, Tim has expressed his opinion that Term 91 is not likely to be in effect on November 1. Does that influence you on that? Or do you think it's too risky?
I
Yeah, and
I-
I'm not sure if we have to approve, like last time, we had approved the agreement first, West Sector after us.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we could do it in the reverse order this time, I'd have to check with them.
All right, you know. You know, I think
The 18th would be less desirable for me.
the 18th of October?
Yeah, my wife's out of town, so we might have
Yeah.
all the kids
No, no,
here.
I'm, yeah,
What
I'm
if-
out of town
And
myself.
I'm
I'm
announcing
in
a
the
football game
Midwest.
starting at
Yeah.
4:30.
And Monday, the whole week of the 21st, our council is gone.
So the 16th of October? No? Yes?
Early?
I'm in St. Louis that day.
Got it. 29th?
I think we went through that date already. Let's check it again.
So are
Tuesday
you
the
in a
29th?
Give the
different, are you
days
in a
that
different
week.
time zone,
Camille's
Camille?
gone that day.
Are you gone that whole week?
Oh.
Are you away on business? How do you feel about calling in?
Would
That's a Brown Act problem, isn't
would
it?
would
about
Halloween be
the-
bad if it was earlier in the day?
Oh, not for Camille, okay.
Sure. How about we do the,
You're not available? Okay, Richard's not available, so the 29th is out.
31st is out.
30th?
what about the morning of the 30th or the morning of the 31st?
The 30th,
You're-
30th is
you're-
out because
okay.
of the regional forum for Sacramento Council
it.
of Governments. 31st got to be really early. Well, that's, yeah, well, Sacramento Area Council of Governments meets at 9:30 and you need half hour to get there, so it would have to be a 7:30 meeting done by 8:15.
Those early mornings are. I
Okay.
could probably make it work one day.
7:30 on Halloween day,
This sounds scary.
okay.
How about midnight out at the cemetery?
Okay. And we're going to,
And so
In Davis.
that would, supposing that we agree to the supplemental water agreement on the morning of the 31st, do you feel that gives us enough time for our friends in West Sacramento to then sign so that we have the ability to make use of the water should we need it beginning the following day?
Yeah, I think that should be okay. I'll talk with them and see if they can actually approve the agreement ahead of us this time. And really, like, technically, it's really just an accounting thing, that all we do is at the end of the month, we tally up which water right we were using.
It's not like they have to open up the
Really, it's
floodgates.
how we transfer the money between us on purchasing the water, but in terms of reporting to reclamation, it's just,
Okay.
that should be worked out as long, it should be able to work out as long as both parties are interested in the agreement. And hopefully they can sign ahead of us. And that would be better.
all right, and I presume we could meet at the Davis City Hall conference room,
Yes, please.
your chambers conference room? All right.
I think were we at 8 a.m. on October 31st?
7:30. 7:30. Yes, October 31.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay.
Is,
We'll find,
would pajamas be an acceptable dress code
yeah,
for,
it better be.
All right, everybody peaceful about that
Yeah,
one?
that's fine. You might have
That's
some
the
kids-
hardest, that's the hardest things we ever get to do.
That is a Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I might have some kids with me, but that's
Ki-
fine too.
Kids are welcome.
Yeah.
They just have to close their ears.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
We're
well,
about to be here.
anything else left to do today? Board member comments?
You want these back, I'm assuming?
Any more board
the-
member comments?
the Sheet from the closed session, so I'm just gonna.
All right.
for it.
There being no further comments, thank you, colleagues. Thank you for giving my a turn at the chair. I'm happy to have it. Thank you, staff, for all the work you
Yep,
do.
Thank you.
We don't see you, and we will see you again in about, 6 weeks? Right. All right. With that, without objection, we're adjourned.